Principles and Practice of Procurement. Welcome to Section 6 of Unit 3, Key Performance Indicators. In this section, you will be introduced to key performance indicators, how they are classified, and how they help improve supply performance by serving as a measurement criteria for assessing whether specifications were followed or not. By the end of this section, we should be able to identify key performance indicators classification, identify key performance indicators and how they improve supply performance, communicate the development and measurement of supplier key performance indicators. So before we go into the classification of key performance indicators, what are these key performance indicators? These key performance indicators are targets set by organization for which they measure progress against. So for instance, as an organization, if it's a key performance indicator that by the end of the period, the financial period, we should have been able to meet about 50% of the population. That is the target we've set for ourselves. That is one key performance indicator. So at the end of the period, when measure our performance against that target we set, against the key performance indicator we set, in order to evaluate our success. Now, key performance indicators can be categorized as either quantitative or qualitative, or they can be categorized as either strategic or operational. So here we have two classifications of KPIs. We have the quantitative and qualitative classification, and we have the strategic and operational classification. The quantitative classification is fact-based measurement. So this is measuring your performance against anything that involves numbers. So for instance, you have the number of sales, the number of defects recorded in our supply chain, the inventory we kept, our supply base, anything that can be proven with facts, that is fact-based. We refer to those as the quantitative classification of KPIs. Then the qualitative are more subjective measures, developed mostly from semi-structured sources such as the customer surveys. A common qualitative indicator that most organizations use is the employee satisfaction survey. This is because the measures we use in obtaining the data is based on the opinions of a person, hence are more subjective. The second classification of KPIs, we have the strategic and operational. As we already know, strategic is anything that is long-term in nature, the overall objective of the organization, the bigger picture. Strategic decisions are long-term in nature, and as such, careful planning goes into it, with top managers present, making key decisions for organizations. As opposed to the operational approach, which has to do with the day-to-day decisions we take in the organization, right? So you're saying that the strategic KPIs are more about monitoring progress and trends towards a stated destination. The destination here is the mission of the organization, the main objective of the organization. So whatever we are doing here, whatever we are trying to achieve here is geared towards achieving, looking at the greater picture, geared towards a particular destination in the organization. So now once organizations are able to set their strategic KPIs, the key performance indicators for their overall objective, these KPIs should be converted into from strategic intent into the operational initiatives. This is done in order to ensure that there is direct alignment between our strategic and operational KPIs. It's not that your strategic KPI is saying something else and your operational KPI is saying something else. It is the strategic KPIs that are broken down into operational, because everything is geared towards achieving the main objective of the organization. So for instance, our main objective is to achieve or reach 100% of the population by the end of the period, right? This is our strategic objective. However, we have to break this strategic objective into operational units. So as an organization, what are we supposed to do? What can we do to ensure that by the end of the period, we are able to meet this 100% population target that we've set for ourselves? So breaking this main objective into smaller units, smaller achievable units for the day-to-day operation of the organization is what we refer to as the operational classification. So now the strategic is looking at the bigger picture, and then we're breaking down the strategic KPIs into smaller units, into our day-to-day operation of the organization is what we refer to as the operational classification. So now we have two classifications of KPI. We have the first classification that has to do with the quantitative and qualitative, and the second classification being the strategic and operational. KPIs and improving supplier performance. Supplier KPIs can be viewed as a mechanism by which a supplier's value to the organization can be assessed. For example, They can be used to assess the supplier's performance in light of the company's requirements in relation to the total cost of the goods and services purchased from the supplier. Now, the organization is going to ensure their suppliers comply with the obligations that has been outlined in the contract, because that is what you're going to use to evaluate the performance of these suppliers and by extension the effectiveness of the supply chain as a whole, right? And using KPIs to measure performance can enable some activities. We're going to briefly go through some of these activities. We have one, support a clear long-term objective for each party, provided the appropriate KPIs are established. Two, to measure performance and establish associated improvement targets. To also manage supplier improvement programs. It's used to strengthen and improve supplier relations by bringing mutual benefits to both parties, assist in developing suppliers. To reward performance achievements, justify continued trading with current suppliers, as well as drive continuous improvement. To achieve consistent performance in delivery, price, quality, etc., requires diligence and consistency together with logically developed approach to establishing supplier KPIs. It is critical to align any supplier measurements with procurement objectives, which in turn must be aligned with corporate goals. For example, the supplier focus can be centered on cost of quality, responsiveness, and so on, but then the subsequent priority weighing needs to directly reflect the procurement department's objectives. Effective communication is also important in developing and measuring supplier KPIs. We should explain to the supplier exactly what the performance standards are expected. If possible, we should develop individual requirements for each supplier rather than using more general criteria. This is more so because we don't assign the same importance to all our supplies, right? Or all our supplies. Some supplies are supplying us with our critical items, some supplies for the bottleneck, some supplies that are non-critical, non-routine items. So we can't just establish some general KPIs and expect to use that criteria on all our supplies. We should set criteria for each supplier. The buying organization should issue recent history trend data, if available, with a written explanation of key issues and requirements related to the individual suppliers. Whenever possible, the buying organization should involve suppliers in developing the performance measurement program. Suppliers can sometimes contribute valuable experiences from their other customers that they work with. In summary, we have explained the role of key performance indicators, identifying needs and creating specifications. We also looked at how key performance indicators can be classified, as we have the quantitative and qualitative, and then the second classification, we looked at the strategic and operational. We further looked at how the KPIs can help improve supply performance in terms of needs identification. Finally, we discussed how to develop and measure KPIs of suppliers. Thank you.